Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Leftist Film Analysis Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Mitchell.
And we are your hosts. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Black Panther. And we are super excited to be doing that because there are just a ton of things politically.
Absolutely.
And especially from a leftist perspective that we can delve into. And we really enjoyed the film itself. So
Yep.
It's a good time. So thanks for tuning in, and we're excited to jump in. Alright, Black Panther was released in February of 2018, directed by Ryan Coogler, and written by Joe Robert Cole and Ryan Coogler. It is based on Marvel characters created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Black Panther stars Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa in Black Panther, Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger, Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia, Martin Freeman as Everett K. Ross, and Daniel Kaluuya as W'Kabi. The plot here, according to IMDb, after the events of Captain America: Civil War, King T'Challa returns home to the reclusive, technologically advanced African nation of Wakanda to serve as his country's new leader. However, T'Challa soon finds that he is challenged for the throne from factions within his country. When two foes conspire to destroy Wakanda, the hero known as Black Panther must team up with the CIA agent Everett K. Ross and members of the Dora Milaje, Wakandan Special Forces, to prevent Wakanda from being dragged into world war. So, to dive a little deeper into that and just kind of unpack the plot a little bit, because there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years ago, essentially, these 5 tribes, these African tribes, went to war over a meteorite containing vibranium. One warrior would ingest a heart-shaped herb, and they would then become the Black Panther. The first Black Panther by doing that. And all but the Jabari tribe unite to form Wakanda. The Jabari tribe, they kind of live on the outskirts and do their own thing, and initially challenged for the throne in Wakanda when T'Challa gets back. But they come around. Back in 1992, King T'Chaka visits his brother N'Jobu, who is working undercover in Oakland, California. T'Chaka accuses him of assisting black market arms dealer Ulysses Claw with stealing vibranium from Wakanda. N'Jobu's partner reveals he is Zuri, another undercover Wakandan, and confirms T'Chaka's suspicions. And a lot of that is integral to the plot as well, and comes back around with Eric Killmonger's character and also King T'Chaka and some different things.
Right.
But that initially happens in Oakland, California. And that's something I want to touch on, is the parallels between the Black Panther Party organization in the 1960s in the U.S. in Oakland, California, and some of the things going on in the film. About Wakanda itself is something we'll be discussing, what it represents as a place, the Kingdom of Wakanda, what kind of society and government structure they have there and they're operating under, the kind of rituals and different things, and the way that power is shifts and things like that. Those kinds of dynamics within Wakanda, the obvious racial and cultural issues at play here, and maybe talk a little bit about how the military specifically affected Eric Killmonger's character and how he got his name, Killmonger, and maybe what vibranium as a resource represents to the culture and to the world. And we'll also talk a little bit about whitewashing and throughout history, and especially in Hollywood and different things like that, because that's an interesting topic to touch on. So we'll cover a lot of different themes. I'd like to start with some words from Black Panther co-founder Huey Newton himself. In Revolutionary Suicide, he said, quote, "The panther is a fierce animal, but he will not attack until he's backed into a corner. Then he will strike out," end quote. And that is on the name of the Black Panther organization and kind of what they were about initially. And I think that's really important to highlight and really interesting, because I don't know if they're seen as a lot of what they were doing was seen as defense and against oppression and police brutality in their communities and things, you know. Right. So I think a lot of people have a lot of different perceptions about the Black Panther organization and a lot of biases, but I think that's that right there shows a lot.
Yeah, it really explains their mindset, because they clearly they feel like they've been backed in a corner, and African Americans, that is. I mean, sorry, I should have specified, but yeah, that's what I meant, because clearly, like definitely, I mean, they've been more than backed into a corner, and that's just it's indicative of just their mindset of like, this has been going on too long, and it's time for us to like finally step up and
take matters into their own hands and protect their communities by forming this organization. And it may speak to some of the way that Wakanda wants to protect itself from outside influence and protect their culture and defend themselves against a lot of those things. So that's a really that's good insight. It's good words from Huey Newton. So I think that also it says something about maybe the direction of the film, that they kind of based a lot of that in the early stuff in 1992 in the film.
It's where the
King T'Chaka and everything in Oakland, California.
Right. The film starts in Oakland, and the Black Panther Party started in Oakland. So that's a cool, super cool parallel.
Right. So obvious parallel there, and we don't know, of course, if that was purposeful, but we just have to take it how we take it. And, it's very, very cool either way. I think also I'd like to mention a quote from Bobby Seale, also co-founder of the Black Panther organization, speaking about solidarity, which I think we see a lot of in this film between the tribes in Wakanda. He said, in quote, "You don't fight racism with racism. The best way to fight racism is with solidarity," end quote. And I think that that's another thing that, especially with the Jabari tribe, coming to the aid of T'Challa and Wakanda later on in the film, which we'll get to and talk a little bit more in depth about. But
yeah,
I think there's a lot of solidarity shown there, and I think that's super important and a really great aspect of the film that was highlighted.
Yeah, I think solidarity is a constant theme throughout the entire movie, and then it all like comes together at the end. So I think that's a huge topic to talk about.
Agreed. And I'd like to mention just real quick that according to IGN, Black Panther became the third highest grossing film of all time in North America, passing James Cameron's Titanic.
That's incredible.
So it's number one is Star Wars: The Force Awakens with $936,662,225. Next is Avatar with $760,507,625. And Black Panther is now third with $665,355,740.
That's incredible, and I think Black Panther is miles better than Avatar.
Agreed.
I think Avatar was just mainly supposed to be a spectacle. The storyline was pretty bland.
I saw it one time, and that was fine.
Yeah, that was it. That was it for me too. I've never had any interest to see that again.
It's certainly the most Black Panther, is certainly the most probably culturally effective and maybe
absolutely
politically effective, and maybe socially. I mean, Star Wars is really there's a big social group around Star Wars, but Black Panther has really revolutionized a lot of that the way we talk about movies this year. So
yeah, and it's super hard, but I think I could even go as far as to say that I probably enjoyed Black Panther more than The Force Awakens, and I absolutely loved The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
I thought it was incredible, and Black Panther just blew me away in so many regards. I mean, it, even if you took out all the social commentary that it offers, like, it's still just a cool ass fucking movie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's the most affecting of those, and I think it's that it's got some real staying power, and
absolutely. And I think it's Marvel's best outing to date.
I agree.
At first, I thought nothing was going to be able to top Thor Ragnarok, because I thought that for the time that was probably going to be the bar, and Black Panther just came and fuck your bar, and now I'm the bar. And it was such a thrilling movie to see, and especially in theaters.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm super glad that it was that was able to be reflected in its earnings as well, because so much great fucking art just doesn't get out there far enough sometimes, because of things like money and capitalism and all this bullshit that gets in the way, and it's, I think that may be something that artists struggle with. We as artists, in a sense, we're musicians and podcasters, if you'd want to consider that some sort of art or information dissemination or something. But I think that's something.
I think it's fair to say that podcasts could be considered art these days.
Certainly, some of them. I mean,
it's a medium, so
yeah, it's like it's news and art and information. I mean, it's a whole bunch. But I think that's something that artists kind of have to deal with and come to terms with, especially in modern society, is how we're going to monetize this, and not just monetizing the art for the sake of income or something, but just to get it out there,
right.
Just to get a further reach on something, especially something like Black Panther that has a political bent to it, or
Yeah, unfortunately, capitalism does have a way to make everything a commodity.
And it can stifle like insurrectionary art.
Sure. Like I think the most notable one is the shirt of Che Guevara. I mean, how many of those do you see people wearing, and they probably paid $20 to $25 for that T-shirt, when Che probably would have advocated for not having his face on a shirt anyway. Yeah,
and I mean, and that's tough, because then you can debate that too. Is it something that helps get the word out?
Sure, yeah,
and that's so. I mean, it's the back and forth. That's the thing. That's the struggle that we're talking about.
But in this case, in terms of Black Panther being monetized or whatever, it's good, because it shows to be the third highest grossing film of all time, shows that there are people out there that were waiting for a movie like this to come along, and something for black people to finally be able to identify with. And I guess you could count Blade, but I mean, that Blade was ahead of its time, but it didn't do anything culturally for black people. Whereas
I guess so. I mean, I know that there was a lot of talk around this film, and there was a lot of there was some backlash from right-winger groups that,
of course,
that we're talking about, why is it a mostly black cast, or why let's try to drive the ratings down, or let's try to sabotage this in some way.
Did you see how many? Speaking of all of that shit, did you see how many fucking white people were posting they got mugged or assaulted outside of the theaters?
And it was a bullshit.
It was totally...
People were posting pictures with the black eyes and bleeding and stuff, and saying they were assaulted and outside of this movie because of the culture that surrounded it, which is fucking ridiculous. And it's just another way to try and kind of undercut that whole thing and
sabotage it, as you said,
and downplay the significance of this film culturally and the positive impact it can have, which I think totally outweighed all the bullshit. And this certainly solidifies, even if it took millions of dollars to do it in a major studio like Marvel Studios, it at least solidifies that this film will be remembered for those things, the positive impact and the cultural things, for far longer than it will for any of that bullshit that surrounded it. And I thought it was great, the solidarity that a lot of people showed in going on opening weekend and making this happen.
Yeah, we were going to try to go opening weekend, but
we couldn't get in. It was too packed.
There were just too many people, so
the parking lots were full, tickets were selling out everywhere. So, it was really a kind of a cultural thing, and it was awesome. It's really great to see. So, and
you felt it in the air too, like that like just driving by the theater and seeing all of those cars and just knowing that they were there for Black Panther, because movie theaters are kind of full, but not to that extent.
Sure, on weekends,
I've never seen it that full before. And
no,
this is multiple theaters that we saw,
and that's the thing. We thought, wow, we haven't seen this theater in town that full, and then now these numbers reflect that. So
sure.
That was, that's cool. But you can debate the impact of, or the merits of showing that kind of solidarity and consumerism, I guess, through capitalism. But that's to me, where we're at today. I believe I'm going to take that as a positive. And I think that folks got out in big groups and showed some solidarity by showing up for this and making it a cultural thing and making people pay attention to it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so just to jump back into the plot here, Ulysses Claw and Eric steal a Wakandan artifact from a London museum early on in the film. And the woman is telling, I guess she's some sort of guide or something at the museum, is telling Eric about the history of it. And he corrects her and says that it's Wakandan and explains how it was essentially whitewashed. So we can talk a little bit about that next.
Okay.
Kind of the whitewashing of culture and history and especially films. I think it's especially evident in the backlash from those groups, right-wing groups, and people that thought that a mostly black cast was a problem, when there have been mostly white casts for a lot of history and films. So I think that changing with this film for whatever reason upset those people, and they were so used to what they thought was the norm, I guess, which is a mostly white cast or something that this came as I guess a shock, or they were upset about it. And that's just
which I still don't understand, because oh man, it's just so frustrating, because it's like, what's it hurting? Why is there a need to even be like, oh God, are they gonna have any white people in this movie? Like, why did
what if they didn't? Fuck off.
Yeah, like seriously. Because as I almost felt like I didn't want the Everett Ross dude from the CIA there, because I was like, I felt like it was trying to appease white fans by having the one white guy in there, and which I understand, but that's also the limits that capitalism put on stuff, because you got to try to appease everybody so you can have like the biggest turnout possible, which they still had,
right?
And it wasn't because of white people, I'm sure.
So I mean, I believe Everett K. Ross was a white guy though in the comics, so you can talk about maybe what if they had made him an African American character in the film? Wouldn't that have pissed people off? Which would have been fine. I don't know. You know, it's like when they were talking about Idris Elba, however you say it, who is great, who I love. When they were talking about, there was a rumor that he was going to play James Bond for a minute a little while ago, and people lost their fucking minds.
Yeah, they sure did. He's a fictional fucking character.
Yeah, he can be whatever, you know.
Just because a white guy wrote it doesn't mean they all have to be white casted.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just the sense that makes to argue over something like that is really strange, but it shows, I think, where a lot of our culture is at, in that, you know, we're so fucking used to the whitewashed versions of history and of art that...
Do you remember the backlash that Gods in Egypt film got? I think it was either Russell Crowe or I think it was Gerard Butler. So he was like supposed to be Moses or something to that effect, and in fucking Egypt, and Gerard Butler he's like Australian, I think.
Yeah, he's something like that. Gods of Egypt.
Okay, yeah, Gods of Egypt.
Okay. Yeah, Gerard Butler was in... Oh, Chadwick Boseman was in that one as well.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
I did not see that film, but go on.
I haven't seen it either. It looked shitty, so so I wasn't going to see it anyway. No disrespect to Mr. Boseman. I think he's a great actor. Loved it. I didn't realize that he was the guy that played Thurgood Marshall.
Another really good.
Yeah, film. that was an incredible film.
It got a little bit overlooked because of how much was going on last year in movies. But
right.
It was as far as like for Oscar season and stuff. But that was a good ass movie. From last
it
year.
Sure was.
But yeah, so there was a backlash. For that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of obvious that like there weren't white people in Egypt at that time. Mm-hmm. And then, like, even as far as Jesus goes, like,
right,
he's totally whitewashed
as well. Yeah.
I mean, by all accounts, this Jesus fellow was based on the time and the place. He was probably a brown-skinned man.
Right. I mean, you know, you have to take that into consideration. I mean,
and southern, especially southern, but not all, conservative Christians are like, no, my Jesus was white.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing, and it's just an ideal, I guess. You have this kind of like idea of like the ideal Jesus for them is white, and that's fucked up too.
And
so like
Santa has to be white for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They shit their pants over a black Santa, which
totally also can be whatever. I mean, it's a spoiler alert here. You know, fictional, mythological, whatever you'd like to call those types of characters, or historical. I mean, whatever you tie all of that to. There's in mythology and religion and history in general. There's just so much of it, you know.
Yeah.
There's so much of that kind of you know, I think initially a lot of the content may have been that way because at the time a lot of this content was being put out, I think it was by white people and controlled by, you know, companies by white people and governments by, and so on and so forth. And so that's also a big issue is manufacturing ideals and things that people are going to learn about the world and history and politics and governments and religions, and who controls the companies or that are putting out these materials, whether it be a studio or a fucking textbook manufacturer, or a publisher. It's private interests and bias and all of those things. None of those industries are immune to any of that. It's all through that. And so to say or think or believe that there's not a bias in history or even education, textbooks, art, anything like that, by some of these large companies in the works, that there's not a bias toward that kind of whitewashing or certain ideals. That's a dangerous thing to buy into and believe, because you're kind of putting blinders on when you do that.
Another film that got some backlash is more recently than Gods of Egypt is Scarlett Johansson and Ghost in the Shell
I think that's
white lady playing I guess she's supposed to be Japanese, because I'm not into anime that much.
But that's what I heard too.
Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh was about as far as I went into anime.
Well, if we have some anime experts out there, or any experts on that film or anything around that, tweet us and let us know what's up. But that's what I heard too, was that
it was supposed to be a Japanese lady that was the main character, and here comes liberal Hollywood to be like, well, what if we got a white lady to play her?
Yeah.
Which is just irritating. If you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, oh, well, we want only white people to play James Bond, but we also want white people to play these other characters that are supposed to be of a different ethnicity.
Right. Yeah. It works both ways.
Right.
And that's it's a shame, but I mean, it's just it's out there, and there are a ton of examples, but whether it be kind of whitewashing the culture of Native Americans and indigenous peoples in the U.S. or in many different places, or ignoring the fact that we totally we brought an entire race of people here, and as slaves made them build up a lot of the infrastructure of our country, and then want to give them nothing in return and act like it's still part of the language, at least here in the South. There's a lot of I don't know if it's other places, but here in the South there's still a lot of that attempt at justifying the Confederate side and the Civil War.
Oh,
and all
yeah.
of that shit. I mean, that's very hotly contested, pretty often, unfortunately, still in the South and in the Southern United States, and that comes up a lot. Is that they're still justifying slavery, and there's after slavery was abolished, these people came back to work and preferred to stay with, almost enslaved or something, or I've heard people say that they were lucky to have been cared for in such a way, or something. I mean, good God, what a shit show that whole thing is. But there's that kind of rhetoric out there, and that's super dangerous as well. And that can be whitewashed a whole bunch, and so
and I think there's even examples of like white people whitewashing white people and being like, oh no, he didn't do that. Like, one of the most notable references is Forrest, Nathan
Bedford Forrest.
Yeah.
We're here in Memphis, Tennessee, so that was there was a big statue to him for a while. We got that shit taken down.
And white people, so many white people are like, well, yeah, he was in the KKK, but once he found out like what they were about, he got the fuck out of Dodge. And every single, there's been like 3 or 4 iterations of the KKK.
Yeah, just different incarnations of them, and
every one of them has been racist as fucking fuck.
Right.
Excuse my.
I mean, there's there are people who try to say that it was an organization for a different cause or something. Initially, and that's not fucking true.
Dungeons and Dragons weren't around back then for them to be dressing up like that shit.
It's a reaction initially to Reconstruction after the Civil War, and then it was kind of a continuation of that, and then a reaction to attempts at equality and voting rights and different things throughout the 50s and 60s, and there's never been an okay incarnation of the fucking plan. So,
never.
But there are people who try and justify it.
Fucking apologists.
And it's really prevalent in the South here, and especially when there are monuments to these people in public places, and there's a big debate over that.
Yeah, we could have a whole episode on that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have as much to do with films. But moving on, there's a scene after they steal the artifact. They go to South Korea because Claw plans to sell this artifact to CIA agent Everett K. Ross, who we discussed a little bit. But a firefight breaks out, and Claw attempts to bail and is caught by T'Challa, who eventually releases him to Ross's custody. And Claw tells Ross that Wakanda's international image is a front for a really advanced society. Everett K. Ross says no. I mean, it's like a kind of a third world country. And Claw says no, they've got a lot going on there. They've got a lot of resources and vibranium, and it's not just this small amount that you thought it was. And essentially, out of that, Everett K. Ross is injured. The CIA agent is injured, and in order to save his life, they have to decide if they want to take him back to Wakanda, where they can use their super advanced technology to heal him. And this is a really interesting scene because it shows, to me, it's kind of like that, debate. You can tell that T'Challa is kind of debating, should I expose this person to my culture, this American CIA agent to my culture, and as a new leader, is this a good decision for my culture and my people?
Could it come back to haunt him?
Or is it, is this going to expose us? He did, not in so many words, but to the American kind of Western...
Because he could go back and be like, guys, there's this whole...
and imperialism ensues, right? I mean, there's going to be... next thing you know.
Yeah, you let America find out something like Wakanda exists in the real world, and
that's right. And
it'll be time to spread some goddamn democracy.
That's right. That's for damn sure. So there's a real debate kind of about that, really, in T'Challa's head, I think, leading up to that. But he agrees to bring him back to Wakanda. And to me, it kind of reminds me of the Jimmy Carter, Shah of Iran situation in the 70s, where he had cancer, I guess, and was dying of cancer, and wanted to be treated in the U.S. and Carter made a very debatable decision, whether it was good or bad or right or wrong, to allow him to come to the U.S. for treatment. This led to a lot of troubles in Iran and the entire, the kidnapping of the storming of the embassy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of diplomacy involved there too, and there's a lot to do with parallels of other historical events and different ways that countries have aided one another in those ways, and there's a lot there, So one of my favorite parts of the whole film, though, is when Everett K. Ross wakes up and is referred to as colonizer.
Yeah.
By his I think it's his little sister, right?
Mm-hmm. The head of the lab.
Right. And I thought that was really great. And she was Shuri, I believe, was her character's name. Is that how you say it?
I believe so.
I thought she was great through the whole film. Also, played by Letitia Wright. She was great, and she I don't remember the exact line, but she did. He woke up and he said something, and she referred to him as colonizer.
Yeah,
and it was.
I think she got scared, and she was like, "Don't scare."
Oh, don't sneak up on me like that, colonizer! Or don't scare me like that, colonizer, or something like that. Yeah, super good. Yeah, that was hilarious. That was one of my favorite parts.
Absolutely.
But very interesting little part there about how about that kind of debate and weighing the options and the decision he T'Challa ends up making to try and save Ross. So let's talk a little bit about the what exactly the vibranium represents as a resource. I mean, there's all kinds of resources in the world that are sought after and that are gone to war over. Oil, of course, comes to mind, but Wakanda's an interesting one. Wakanda has an interesting one, and really advanced technology due to vibranium.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot. I guess there's a lot you could speculate over.
I wonder if it's supposed to represent their culture.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that too,
because that's basically what America did to Africa, is like steal their people, steal their culture, and then whitewashed everything.
Yeah, it's like
white people are constantly appropriating all of black people's culture. Much as I love him, Eminem totally took over rap in a way.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think they want to protect the resource so as not to have it stolen and appropriated and bastardized and used by the rest of the world, because then they don't know how it's going to be used, and that's that's understandable. It's kind of commodifying the thing, but who knows if that gets into the wrong hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really interesting. That was something that really struck a chord with me. Is the kind of fight over resources in the world, and just kind of what vibranium might represent. I think you're right, though. I think it is probably, at least to me, it seems like it represents
because
that culture or something like that. That's what I would take away from it.
The vibranium is basically what makes Wakanda Wakanda.
Mm-hmm.
It's the total basis for it, and you could parallel it to, I don't know, is parallel a verb? I need English lessons sometimes.
Yes.
There could be a parallel, rather,
right,
between because when the slaves got brought over, all they had was their culture over here and the remnants of it, and that's what
We took their their labor and their culture and
right.
all kinds of things.
But specifically their labor's what like helped them get through their songs.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of culture, and there's some religion in there. There's some rituals and different things that were kind of stolen and appropriated and changed. But let's move to kind of bigger than vibranium, or maybe like you said, that's what makes Wakanda Wakanda. But let's talk about Wakanda or the Kingdom of Wakanda. Is that I guess that maybe is a monarchy?
I suppose,
king, right? So,
I don't know what else to...
There's a small council. It may be one of the... It's kind of a council of elders. It may be representatives from each tribe.
Right.
But except for the Jabari tribe, who also still...
Yeah, M'Baku ain't having shit to do with them.
So... At
least for most of the film. He comes around, though.
He does. He comes through and he shows solidarity. Near the end of the film, and Wakanda bands together, but against kind of an outside military kind of thing, but or militaristic thing. But yeah, I think Wakanda is a very interesting place to talk about because apparently you have to be one blood related to one of the 5 tribes to be ruler. Now, that is a way, again, maybe of protecting and defending your culture, but also, you could debate the merits of that as well, because we've seen a lot of dynastic politics before in a lot of places, and
which I guess that technically would make it a monarchy, because isn't that how most monarchs...
Well, I mean,
dynasty, family stuff.
Very often it is. Yeah, I mean, very often it is very controlled and kind of handed down and inherited, right? But there's also, it's kind of a barbaric. You have to basically, it's combat. Is how you take power, and you can debate the merits of that, because maybe the best combatant may not always be the best leader of a country. But it's a kind of a ritual thing that it's how power changes hands there, and it works for their culture to an extent. Until I guess Mr. Eric Killmonger comes through, and we can talk about Wakanda and segue into the military, kind of militaristic aspects of the film. With that, because Eric Killmonger, he was a kid from Oakland, who was the son of
Njobu.
Yes, I believe so. The brother who was killed in 1992. Right. So
shout out to Sterling K. Brown. I love him and everything that he does. He's so fucking good.
Yeah, he's super good. So he grew up as just a kid in Oakland then, and there's a lot of socioeconomic things there. There's one that I think there's one line where he says something about how he didn't cry about that because he was used to the violence or something like that in that area. So that's super interesting.
That's tragic.
Yeah, it really is. It's really sad. But I mean, there's a lot there, and so then he finds himself in the military, right? And he got all of the kills that are kind of decorated across his chest, right?
His chest, his arms, his back, they were all over.
They represent a kill, and each represent a kill, and it shows how sometimes the military, very often the military, can take a kid from that type of scenario and make them into a killer for hire, essentially, and and how that can shape and form identity and a psyche and ideology, and that's really what led Eric Killmonger kind of down the road that he was on, it kind of, I guess, was the catalyst for that, because a lot of socioeconomic and earlier stuff, I guess, really kind of put him on track for that.
Right.
Conditioned a certain way. But the military sure did use it.
To their advantage, yeah.
And so then he kind of adopts a really militaristic idea, and it's really, I sympathize with him on a lot of that. I mean, he's kind of a revolutionary figure.
I don't blame him at all
for wanting to go and give the vibranium and these resources of Wakanda to oppressed peoples around the world to be able to fight back against their oppressors. Fuck yeah! I mean, that's hard to argue with. Right?
That's what we're about here.
But so as leftists, that's kind of hard to argue with. But especially talking about the defense, against police brutality and things in their communities, with the Black Panther organization, kind of harkens back to that. That's hard to argue with.
Killmonger wasn't wrong in his ideas and approach
and that's interesting because he was a little bit self-destructive, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that T'Challa kind of took on a lot of his ideas, though.
Yeah, that's what I was really happy about, because yes, there were still going to be a little bit of differences in the approach, but he didn't disagree with Killmonger.
Right, and maybe took a more diplomatic approach, but I mean, I think there was a lot of I think that's part of what it took to push T'Challa to realize that some sort of international solidarity with oppressed peoples, having vibranium as a resource could improve things.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It didn't really talk about how that's going to be used. I mean, he went to the UN, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the film, another spoiler here, and decided he was going to let the world in on the Wakandan secret of the resources of vibranium. Those can, maybe that's still up in the air.
Yeah.
Was that a good decision? How is it going to be used?
I believe we're getting a sequel.
Tweet.
So
Send us a tweet if you've got ideas. But I think that's debatable. But I think it's good that he opened it up to show maybe some international solidarity with oppressed peoples.
Yeah.
But hopefully that goes more from the ground up and works toward the advantage, for the betterment of the oppressed people, rather than, corporations getting a hold of it and, big military forces getting a hold of it and all that shit. So, that's interesting. Yeah, I hope we do get a sequel. And
I think we're supposed to.
And I'm sure Black Panther's going to be woven all throughout Avengers films and all that stuff to come. So
yeah, I'm super excited for
Infinity War. Yeah. Yep, agreed.
Before we get out of here, I do want to talk about Killmonger's last scene.
It's so good.
Yeah, he got a knife in the tummy, and things were looking kind of bleak for him, and T'Challa tells him that we could still heal you.
Mm-hmm.
We can fix this. Let us heal you. And he says, quote, "Why? So you can lock me up? Nah. Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from the ship because they knew death was better than bondage."
Yeah.
End quote. And that just fucking got me, man. That was what a way to go out. What a line. We're both fans of super good writing, and I don't think you get any better than that. That was just super powerful and impactful.
That was super good, and I mean, I think that sums it up well. The character of Eric Killmonger. But yeah, essentially, I mean, just to summarize, and I
think it's sorry to cut you off. I think it's important to I don't know about you, but I wanted him to get healed and
Yeah.
and go
Yeah, I
back
liked him for most of the film.
Yeah, I thought he was a great character, and I totally sympathized with him. He wasn't wrong in anything that he said. So I wanted him to go back, but I thought him dying on his sword was even more impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. And
He was true to his cause, and
yeah. Real quick, I just want to point out that M'Baku, I guess, of the Jabari tribe, did show solidarity in helping heal T'Challa after Killmonger initially seemed to have defeated him to take over the throne in Wakanda, and he helped lead the efforts against kind of opposing forces. But he also, when Everett K. Ross spoke how to turn, I guess, in front of him, he barked at him and just kind of would not let up on that. He made sure it was known.
Everett had no voice there.
Yeah, that he was speaking out of turn and was not welcomed in doing so.
No,
I just
absolutely
thought that was
not.
kind of cool,
Yeah.
kind of interesting that in the way that they handled that, but and in the way that went over. But yeah, it's a great film. I super enjoyed it. I thought it looked great. It was well written. Of course, it's a Marvel film. I like a lot of those.
Yeah.
You know, they're good films.
Yeah, they seemingly don't know how to make a bad film unless it's Thor 2.
Yeah, that's true. And but this one was kind of stuck out for a different reason.
Oh, yeah.
And was super cool. And so, if you've got thoughts on it, please hit us up on Twitter at FilmLeftist or email us at leftistfilmpodcast@gmail.com. If you find us on iTunes, please leave us a review and a rating. We would very much appreciate it. We're still super new.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Black Panther. Loved it a lot there. There's probably more than we have been able to unpack in this hour. But
Yeah.
But it was...
This has definitely been one of my favorite conversations.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite episode so far.
Definitely.
What are we doing next week?
It's been fun. Next week we're going to do Ready Player One, because we just saw that, and I was blown away by it. I thought it was super cool, and for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
And
tons to unpack there too.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things politically to unpack there. So tune in next week. We're talking about Ready Player One. Thanks everybody. We're signing off in solidarity. Appreciate y'all.